Good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining us on 13 Plus. I'm Mary Coleman. In this week's Crime Files, a convicted child molester is still on the run, and the U.S. Marshals need your help finding him. After searching for years, there's been no luck from some of the most well-trained people in apprehending fugitives. Here's that story. In February of 2021 in Fort Huachuca, U.S. Army Captain Christopher Wilkinson was convicted of sexual abuse of a minor and indecent exposure. He was sentenced to 3 years confinement and was discharged from the Army. Wilkinson was scheduled to be court-martialed but did not show up to the hearing and has not been seen or heard from.
So we've conducted many interviews and a lengthy investigation in and around the Sierra Vista area. We've also sent Marshal Service personnel from Illinois, which is where his family is and where he's originally from, to conduct a follow-up investigation in that location.
But no luck. The Marshal Service believes there's a high likelihood that Wilkinson fled to another country. While they think his looks have not changed, they believe his skills could be helping him evade law enforcement.
Mr. Wilkinson was assigned to the military intelligence section at Fort Huachuca. He had been doing military intelligence for quite some time, and he had been almost an entire career in that section in the Army. So he does have a unique skill set, and we believe he is quite intelligent and able to evade in that way.
Something else marshals want the public to be on the lookout for is the vehicle Wilkinson may be driving.
And the truck that he was, we believe he may be in, is a 1963 Chevrolet pickup truck. It's very old, it's very distinct. Very unique. It's not something that you see very often.
The U.S. Marshals will continue their search in hopes of finding a clue so that Wilkinson serves his time for the crimes he's been charged with.
We treat all of our fugitives in the same way, regardless of what the charges are. It's our job to locate them, apprehend them, and bring them before a court.
And in our next story for this evening, it's a business model at the center of legal and ethical debate: surgeons owning medical device companies. Our national team looked into the concerns and how some patients are experiencing life-altering consequences.
How'd you guys do this to me?
Paul Shin says he'll never recover from the hardware put into his back.
Wow, you guys got me. I haven't reflected like this in, it's a decade.
Kevin Reynolds says surgery with screws and rods left his mother bedridden.
It has broken my heart, not my spirit, but it's just so emotional for me still.
In a way, a doctor broke the lives of these two men.
Those flesh wounds are deep, emotionally. Anger is just almost uncontainable at times.
The doctor operating under a system of secrecy, impossible for you, even our investigative team, to figure out.
Wow, didn't realize what I escaped.
I love you. Mr. Paul Shin on the bass guitar. Check it out. Shut up! Come on, everybody!
This used to take up much of Paul Shin's time until the rock and roll musician tore some cartilage in his knee. That injury cascaded into a series of serious problems. A limp from his leg issue wound up causing back pain. That's when a doctor sent him to a specialist.
So they recommended that you get an operation on your back?
Yes, a medical procedure that was minimally invasive.
He says the procedure changed his life forever.
The second I woke up from surgery, I think the first words out of my mouth were, what happened? What happened to me? Why do I feel stretched?
Shin says the surgery involved a clamp and surgical material, but the material busted apart and he needed it removed. Here's what came out. Some pieces remain lodged in his spinal cord. left him with limited mobility. The pain is unbearable, sometimes forcing him to use a wheelchair.
If my mind is busy, I don't have time to focus on the pain and the distraction of primarily a very painful life and very subdued life.
He now fights to keep weight on, going from 160 to just 115 pounds. Most of the day he sits alone and watches the stock market.
Lunch money is done.
Public records show Shin was among many patients who sued Dr. Arya Sabit, who's been accused of multiple botched surgeries with high infection rates and surgical mishaps. What was unknown to many patients, Sabit made money off some of the screws, plates, and cages he used in surgeries.
I'm supposed to have several surgeries over the last decade, and I'll never get another surgery in my life again. I'd rather die than trust a physician that has any possibility of having a benefit on their own side for my health. It's not part of the Hippocratic Oath.
Sabit's setup is actually used by doctors all across the country. It's known as physician-owned distributorships, or pods. It's where the doctors own a piece of the company that supplies the hardware for surgeries.
And so it creates a significant conflict of interest to the patient, because you're there trying to take care of the patient, and you have these egregious doctors that were throwing in hardware just for the sake of making money.
Neurosurgeon Scott Lederhouse once served as president of the Association for Medical Ethics. He says by using their own company's hardware, doctors can make 2 or 3 times more money per surgery.
Most of the doctors keep it in a stealth mode where they just will keep quiet about their involvement in the pod, making any money on the implants they put in.
Right now, it's almost impossible to identify where pods are operating, even though they're required to publicly report ownership through a federal program called Open Payments. In 2016, a Senate committee said it knew of many pods that were not complying with that disclosure law. Last year, the federal government said it did outreach to tens of thousands of doctors about reporting pods, but it appears that didn't improve transparency. When we analyzed the most recent federal data, we only found 24 likely pods. We dug deeper, looking at documents from a spine surgery association, and found an additional 23 declared pods not in the federal data. But the Senate committee said it knew of at least 500 surgeons likely involved with a pod. What this means, it's currently impossible to identify most pods. You have no idea if your doctor is benefiting from the hardware used in your surgery. Some hospitals have discontinued allowing these pods, and the government has discussed evidence of pods doctors operating more often and sometimes unnecessarily. But some health law experts argue this story is more about some bad doctors instead of a bad business model.
Because if a surgeon is doing unnecessary surgeries, to me that's a whole different issue, having nothing to do with what they own. That's a problem in and of itself. You know, to me that's analytically a different question.
Charles Oppenheim says a doctor using his own pod's equipment could actually benefit patients. That
probably may even give me more confidence, and that the surgeon is so confident in the device he's going to implant in me that he actually has an interest in the distributorship for that device.
But Oppenheim does believe there should be transparency when doctors are invested, operating with their own products.
I hate the word transparent in the medical field because I didn't experience any of that. I've cried many cries, many tears.
Kevin Reynolds' mother spent her life helping others as a special education teacher.
She was a beautiful lady, heart of gold, mother to everybody, sunshine in the room, always in red, always in makeup, always nails and jewelry done right.
After developing a number of medical conditions, Reynolds brought his mother to Dr. Arya Sabit.
And proceeded to ask a few questions. And within within 3 to 5 minutes, he was suggesting that he'd like to do surgery, that she would be a candidate to relieve the pressure and help her out, and that surgery would be the next step.
Reynolds says he signed pre-op paperwork for a 1 or 2 level spinal fusion.
He took it upon his own accord to do more levels, 3 to 4 levels in total, so 2 extra levels without our consent.
The surgery left Reynolds' mother with multiple infections. She never walked again and eventually died at 69 years old. It wasn't until lawsuits filed in California and Michigan surfaced that Kevin Reynolds even knew Sabbath profited from the hardware he put in patients.
You know, it was all backdoor type situations that we're bringing out to the forefront right now.
He's taken his frustrations to Capitol Hill, testifying in his mother's memory.
Once again, I ask and demand this committee to stop these doctors.
Begging the government to step in and create rules for doctors that force disclosure and eliminate the ability to operate for profit.
It's getting bigger. It's getting more prevalent. What are we going to do? What are they going to do? What is anybody going to do?
We now leave you with a live look of the Tucson area as the sun is going down. We hope you're having a great evening, and will join us for 13 News Live at 10 for more local weather and news. Have a great evening.